Utafunga na nani? Those were the dreaded ones. Utafunga na wewe. That's a kibuli. I'm telling you, utafunga na wewe. Ndu is still away. She's still under the weather. She's not feeling so good. We wish her a quick recovery. Dennis Aseto is our new man on the show, and he's here, and he will stay. Today is Wednesday. We're going to have a Wealth Wednesday conversation with Standard Chartered Bank, and as we do that, we are going to welcome our guests. We are joined by Paul Njoki, CFA, Head of Affluent Banking and Wealth Management Products at Kenya and East Africa at Standard Chartered Bank, and Diana Moredi, Head of Legal Services at Standard Chartered. He is also Head of Legal Services and Private Wealth at Anderson. Good morning, Diana. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning.
Good to see you again, Paul.
Fantastic.
Good to see you, Diana.
Asante.
That's usually the hot seat of the situation room. And because you came dressed in red,
Yes.
You've neutralized the fire.
Bas.
You had the sikumbe ulikuwa unajua.
Yeah.
You had the leakage. Siti.
Yes, please.
Please tell our guests two things. One, how to consume liquefied fruit over this Christmas period.
Yes.
Then I'll tell you the second one first.
Yes. We all enjoy the prospects of eating. Okay, you want to eat ugali, you want to eat sukuma wiki, and then you say you want to wash it down with, what can you say, juice. Now Del Monte is telling you, what we have isn't that. What we have is fruit in liquid form. And it's not just fruit. It is selected fruits ripened naturally, and with vitamin D nakuja na piga ripened, and then it's taken through the process that gives you what Kenyans, East Africans know as Del Monte quality products. No additives, no sugar, no coloring, nothing. And if you like tomato, well, now they've taken a step further. That's a vegetable. So now vegetable in liquid form. So here you'll be drinking your vegetable. Okay? Now, I am going to make some noise in a few minutes' time. You'll hear some rustling. That rustling is from a hamper that I have next to me here. That hamper has Del Monte products. Now, tell me, what is your favorite Del Monte drink?
Diana.
Pineapple.
Pineapple.
You like pineapple?
Yes.
Okay, that is your preferred Del Monte drink.
Yes.
What about you?
Cranberry.
Cranberry.
Yeah, I always take a packet every time I go to the supermarket.
Every day you've got to, every time you go shopping,
Yes.
you will actually walk out with a Del Monte cranberry juice.
Yeah, and I keep it in the car.
Oh, wow.
I am going to do you one better. I'm going to give you cranberry apple juice blend.
Oh.
Okay?
Wow.
So you have cranberry because you asked for it, and because you are a wonderful friend, we've added apple to your cranberry.
To keep the doctor away.
And you,
Yes.
pineapple, you said?
Yes,
well,
pineapple.
we're doing better as well. We're giving you Del Monte Gold Pineapple.
Oh,
Okay.
love it. Thank you.
Very nice.
Now, these are not just bundles of joy. These are bundles of sweet, succulent joy. So enjoy your Del Monte product.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
To at least make save one trip.
Thank you.
We have a new one for your car. Oh. Okay. Siti,
Yes.
the second thing
Yes, please.
is the proverb.
Yes.
In which country of Africa are we this week?
We were in a kingdom last week, and we saw it fit to be in another kingdom this week. We are in the kingdom of Lesotho, otherwise known as Lesotho to most of you, because that's how it's written. Now, I want to ask you a question. Can any of you tell me the capital city of this kingdom? The kingdom in the sky, as it is called by some. Very mountainous. I'll give you a hint. This one should help you. It's not Nairobi.
Oh, so helpful. So helpful. I absolutely have no idea.
Paul?
I'm actually wondering, do they have a capital city?
They actually do. And it's also their largest city. Do not worry. If you have no business with Lesotho, you will not know. It's actually Maseru.
Oh.
Maseru.
Maseru.
Yes,
Okay.
Maseru.
Oh.
Okay, that's the capital city. Now the proverb. Hey, houses built close together burn together.
Houses built close together burn together. Diana, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
I think it's the first thing it brings to my mind is that issue of bad company ruins good morals or something like that. Like with the company you keep will be eventually how your life turns out. So that whatever we're doing, we're doing it together. So if we're excelling together, in this case it's burning, which is not necessarily always a good thing, we're going to ruin each other. So yeah, I think it's about company, the company we keep.
Okay.
Yeah, so birds of feather flock together. I think that's what comes to my mind. Yeah, and which is very close to what Diana has mentioned. Yeah, but it's only that in this case it's a negative connotation as opposed to a positive one. So again, bad company. Yeah, we renew.
But why can't positive company influence the bad company? Well, we always look at it from the other side. That if you keep company with bad people, they are going to influence you. Or do you say keep company with bad people so that you make them
But
positive?
also, one seems to forget that people choose the company that they keep. So this issue of your morals being corrupted, maybe you have the corrupt moral. That's why
You have recessive genes for corrupt morals. That's why you've been attracted to these people.
You're inherently corrupt.
yes. So you just gravitate towards your kind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we've hosted Paul here, Paul Joki, Head of Affluent Banking and Wealth Management. And today we want to talk about wealth reaching the next generation. We have very many questions on that. But Diana, Head of Legal Services and Private Wealth at Anderson. What's Anderson?
Oh, Anderson is a global legal and tax firm. So we're an integrated services, full services firm where we offer legal solutions and tax solutions and solutions in the consulting world. Yes, we are I think in 48 locations now in Africa and globally in about 177 locations. So yes, legal tax consulting is Anderson. Yeah.
Wewe ni wakili?
Yeah, so ultimately mimi ni wakili, but I'm what they call a wealth attorney. So a wealth attorney is someone who receives portfolios. Portfolios in a simple sense is just your list of assets and liabilities. And then I advise on how to mitigate legal risk and tax risks and tax risks on the portfolio. That usually ends up with structuring. So structuring means that I create the house in which the wealth sits. So Paul and his team grow the wealth. I build the house in which it sits, therefore save it from fire. So types of legal risks that could be in a portfolio include succession disputes, matrimonial property disputes, debt issues, structuring the debt. If we're dealing with someone who has, say, a business, we're discussing how the shareholder gets their final benefit as tax efficiently as possible. Yeah, so basically that's what I do.
As in there are such services. Did you know that's it?
No, not really. I know that banks have lawyers, but I assume that the lawyers are there so that when we claim that they have wronged us,
the lawyers
they
can
come and
defend
tell us
them.
that exactly it is you who wronged them.
And then the lawyers are there to write the small print.
The small print, the ones which when they write for you, first of all, you take your own house, you walk around the room just before you gather courage to agree.
Start
Because it's
reading
a medical agent, you realize, yeah, well, this is not good news. But this is interesting because it means that someone who does what you do has a specific training.
So
yes, please.
Yes, so yes, I started out as just legal training in terms of an LLB in law. So I am a lawyer at the end of the day. I don't yet have CFA training, but I do plan to pursue it in the future. But I have training in terms of like the trust laws. What else? I have training in terms of business strategy, but that's not necessarily related to the role I'm talking to you about now. It's related to other roles I also have in the organization. Yes, but basically that's about it. I have, and then obviously a lot of experience in terms of structuring, onshore, offshore, cross-jurisdictional holding of assets, onshore estates, offshore structuring, as I've said, with obviously the help of the finance experts as well. And then the tax planning. So the tax planning applies to every portfolio. So we say that tax risks are the one risk on your portfolio that are not glaring at you. You don't know whether you're in the best tax position by just looking at it. But when we look at it, sometimes we can show you a way to hold your assets in a way that reduces the tax exposure.
You know, you live in a very complex world. All these things you've explained, just money. I have money, and I want this money to do certain things for me. And then all these things that you've said come into play.
Yes.
So, what happens to people who don't have this knowledge?
Exactly. And I'm actually thinking, just to add on that, when I hear you, I'm wondering, so do I need to be really rich so that I'm looking for, I can then afford Diana? At what point does someone require your services, or services of a wealth attorney?
Yeah.
So that's an excellent question. And the first thing is to ask, who has a risk on their portfolio? Which is why we're here with Stancha to talk to you about that. Who has a risk on their portfolio? The first risk I've told is a risk of death. So which of us here is susceptible to death?
Everybody.
Yeah. Which means any of us here, if not well structured, are susceptible to a succession dispute. You've seen how succession disputes affect the portfolio. The money is stuck in court, or the building is now not being built. Court has given injunctions. So that's the first person. Who has a risk on, say, matrimonial property disputes, which are taking. We've seen a matrimonial property dispute go all the way to the Supreme Court. So, and they're fighting about assets that are listed in the Supreme Court. In the time that they're fighting about those assets, because it's a publicly reported case with multiple rentals in Langata and wherever. What's happening to the rental income then? Is Paul being able to invest it such that it's gaining value
so it's
for
just
you?
stuck somewhere.
Yeah, or it's stuck in court, Yeah, so and then which other disputes have I said? Debt. Each of us has debt. Is it structured well? Are we over-securitized? So there are many elements. Our job ideally is to ensure that as the portfolio, the investment managers, that's now the Lex Stanchat wealth, as the portfolio managers are growing the wealth is such that it's preserved. It's not dissipating just because of insufficient legal structuring or tax or poor tax planning. Yeah.
And everybody
With a portfolio.
actually needs this.
Yeah.
Now, the other question, and Paul, I come to you. We are talking about wealth and then taking it to the next generation. Even before we go into the next generation, every time we have these conversations, people usually segment themselves. All right? So you segment yourself and think, okay, so I'm at that level where I consider myself at a level where I'm consolidating my wealth. So I'll talk to Paul and his team. Someone else is thinking, I'm not yet there, so I don't need to. But from what you have said before and what Diana is saying today is that as long as you're alive and you are doing something, you have an income and you're seeing how this income can stretch, then you are in the category of wealth building.
Absolutely.
And as long as you're in the category of wealth building, then you need to start thinking about the todays and into the future.
Absolutely.
Okay, now let me ask the question about what is next generation?
Okay, so next generation is the people who will hire from you. That is the next generation. I know it in different contexts. You say the next generation, meaning the people who are younger. But what you found out is that we have people who are 60 years and they are the next generation because their parents are now bequeathing them the wealth. They are 40-year-olds who are, getting this wealth, either businesses, property, could be even investments that their parents have generated over time. So that's the next generation. You also have a case of where the next generation are people who are below 18 years and who are very vulnerable, that have to be protected. Because if the wealth that has been generated by their parents is anything that will reach them and they haven't gotten to the age of 18, somebody has to help. Somebody who is an adult has to help so that then they are able to access that wealth when they become 18. So the next generation can be anyone. But I just want to bring the context again. And I think Diana has framed it very well. And thank you very much, Latif. But we find that the need for structuring comes in at any point when you start holding any asset or earning any income. And it can be a requirement to save yourself if you are unwell and you need somebody to sign for your hospital bill or for you to be admitted in a hospital. It's as simple as that. We have cases where, somebody is in the hospital. They are the only signatory to the bank account. Their family is trying to figure out a way of how they get the person to get admitted.
Yeah.
And they have money.
The money is in the bank account.
It's there.
But the only person who can remove the money from the bank account.
Yeah, and he's unconscious or
Is
she's
this one
unconscious.
who needs to go to hospital?
So even as basic as that, to even say, forget about death now, to save your dear life, you need to start thinking about structuring.
So that structure look like actually now that let's use that example, Diana. Okay.
Yes.
So yes, I have an account with Standard Chartered Bank.
Yes.
I am this. The account is in my name.
Okay.
I am the signatory to this account.
Yes.
All right? Then I fall ill.
Yes.
I'm incapacitated. I need to be
Yes.
admitted to, get the services.
Yes.
So, how would you structure this such that then my next of kin can transact,
Okay. So two things.
or it can benefit me, or maybe they don't need to get money from their account,
Okay.
but Paul can give them something else.
Okay. So incapacity is a risk on any portfolio, and one of the easiest tools to deal with incapacity is known as a power of attorney. But before I get to that, once we're having a conversation with that client, we'll ask what would happen if this scenario happened, the scenario you've described. And they would say, if that happened, I would like my daughter to be able to access, or my spouse to be able to access those funds and be able to pay for my medical. Believe it or not, I have one of my clients who has a figure on his trust deed who actually says this is the limit beyond which if you spend up to this money, it's okay. You guys, I'm fine now. Leave me. Let me. Let me be. Let me be. So that's the first one. But so if that's what they have come and said, this is I want my spouse or my daughter to do that. So the first thing is they could have discussed with their banker when they are alive and said, when they're in good health, and said, can I add a joint signatory? And then that joint signatory would have those powers. That's the most basic level where they are guaranteed that won't be a problem if there is incapacity.
So the conditional joint signatory.
As to whether it's conditional.
You can structure it. We take the mandate from the client.
All right.
Yeah.
It can be either.
Yep.
It can be it's one. The account name is one.
Yes.
But the operators of the account are multiple.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So that's one. And then the second one now, from a legal perspective, especially, and this is increasingly happening. We're seeing an increase in diseases or mental disorders that are leading in loss of mental faculty. So like Alzheimer's, dementia. So at the start, you still have mental faculty, but somewhere gradually you lose it, and therefore you're not able to manage your affairs. You have two options. You can have a power of attorney, which can be a specific power of attorney. I know you must have seen on TV things people call advanced directives or stuff like that, like ways in which they give up the rights for people to make medical decisions for them. Those ones are essentially under our law, just powers of attorney. So a specific one says, I'm giving you specific powers to operate the account, this specific account. Or a general one where I give up, because I know, say, for instance, this person knows the dementia will gradually increase, they give up all their powers. Now, in the event that this person does not do that, and the issue we're dealing with now is, say, a mental health issue of incapacity, they would have their beneficiaries, which is now option 3, would have to file an application in the High Court under Mental Health Act to get what we call legal managership or legal guardianship. So this person, either the spouse or daughter, whoever it is now appointed as a guardian or manager of this other person's estate. So that's a more complicated route. We don't encourage that, because it means you're filing records in court, you're producing very sensitive information in court. Of course, courts have ways of ensuring that the data is not all over, but yes, we usually advise think about it in advance, which is why we're here to tell people what to think about, or at least the solutions available.
Dennis, do you think about such kind of things?
I think about it on a daily basis, only not at this depth. Because at the end of the day, yes, incapacitation is there whether you like it or not. But in terms of having it structured, not yet. So in terms of this is in information, there is always that thought of what next, the future and all that. Where do I go to? Because this is information that is lacking out there. Yes.
I think the first place to start, and that's where Standard Chartered Bank comes in, is that we have set up ourselves in a way that allows you as a client to have a real conversation, a deep conversation with us. And that's the relationship management model. So we have a relationship manager. That relationship manager, and only a group of clients have one relationship manager. And we really encourage that a relationship manager takes care of the family. And of course, if the family so do wish, right? And so that they can have conversation about money. Okay? Like seriously. They can have conversation about their goals tomorrow. Okay? And that's what we call the today, tomorrow, and then the forever. Forever is about legacy. And then once they have identified a need as such, immediately we bring in the experts. So in that case, when you're talking about legacy planning, or how the money may transition or will transition to the next generation, or what you may want to be done when you're not able to sign the check on your own behalf, then we bring in Diana, the legal fraternity, to come and now help the legal documents so that they are proper, it's clear who has the mandate, up to what level, and all that. Then once that legal structure is created, we bank it. And Diana can go into details later in the show in terms of what structures are there, but we bank those structures. And then the wealth is contained in those structures. Okay, so it's like Diana, and help us to build the container in which then we put the various wealth, and then we manage that wealth. And as I mentioned, it can be as simple as just a current account where you have put money, you have a fixed deposit, and you're saying, wait a minute, if something happens, this is what I would like. And then you bring in a power of attorney, or you bring a joint account holder into that equation. It can be a little bit more complex, where you need to put together a trust or a holding company, depending on what structure may fit you. But the starting point is the relationship manager.
Eric, are we going into a break? Okay, let's go so that I can ask the question later.
Let's do that. Take us to a break, City, with Emirates. And in fact, because we're talking about wealth. You don't just fly like that. You fly business, and you don't just fly any airline. You fly Emirates, because you have thought about your wealth and your well-being, and you want to lie flat when you're 40,000 feet above sea level.
Well, the 40 feet above sea level is interesting because
40,000.
Would I say 40,000 or 40?
40.
You almost said 4.
I don't know why this 40 just keeps sticking on my tongue. 40,000. The movement from actually traveling terrestrially in a very crowded bus, if you have the misfortune of being slightly tall, by the time you reach your destination, you can barely walk. Now, flying can do the same to you. There's some airline that specializes in cramping your feet. That's not what we're talking about. We are talking about a situation where from the time you plan to travel, you leave your official residence or wherever it is that you're leaving from to go to the airport, Emirates ensures that they take you to that airport in comfort. The word limousine comes to mind. That is setting the stage for when you actually board the plane. And when you board the plane, the greetings comes with an array of offers. Do you wish to sit? Do you wish to eat? Do you wish to drink? And if you wish to sleep, do you think that it's only reclining the seat and tell you, no, sir, madam, no. This thing can be flattened flat. And so that your sleep is complete, we will give you pajamas, which you can keep. We'll also give you a duvet, which you must leave. When you wake up and you find that you want to work, Wi-Fi is available. That 40,000 feet, Wi-Fi galore. After working, the flight is long. You want to watch a movie, now you'll be spoiled for choice. There'll be so many channels to choose from. Movies, a variety of movies, sports, movie, documentary, movie, real, whatever it is they call it, movie. These ones which never end, one episode then the other, movie, okay? And if you want to socialize with your friends, the lounge isn't just on the ground. In the air, you can actually meet, talk. And when we talk about having a drink, a little tipple, it isn't just your common fare. This will be the top-notch libation. Things which it'll titillate your taste buds, but it'll also tickle your mind. You will land the feeling that indeed you had a delightful flight. And then you can go to your destination and arrive not only safe and sound, alert, well, and delighted.
I wish Lydia had captured Diana's reaction as you were telling this story, because Diana is not here. Diana is
in that lounge. The lounge.
Diana is being titillated. It's 26 minutes to 8. Let's take this break. Paul Njoki, Head of Affluent Banking and Wealth Management Products at Standard Chartered Bank, and Diana Muridi, who's a wealth attorney, Head of Legal Services and Private Wealth at Anderson Anderson, the Global Legal and Tax Advisory. They are here. Will your wealth reach the next generation? That's the conversation today in this Wealth Wednesday conversation with Standard Chartered Bank. Back shortly.
This is the Situation Room.
Show off your best skin with Nivea Nourishing Cocoa Body Lotion.
Kiboko will get you excited enough to jump right out of your bed.
Ain't like you to hold back and drop it.
It is a very fun
Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's with Paul Njoki, Head of Affluent Banking and Wealth Management Products, and Diana Murray, Head of Legal Services and Private Wealth at Anderson. And of course, now your two organizations come together. I'm assuming that I don't have to come to Anderson directly. As long as, and Paul, you said this, as long as I have my relationship manager at Standard Chartered, I give you my needs, then in the background, you are working with Diana to sort me out.
Absolutely.
Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I don't have to pay Diana Kando.
No, you would have to pay Diana. Yeah, but I think the whole idea here, and this is the conversation about wealth, is that we have to do work to structure and organize our wealth so that it can reach the next generation. There's a cost to it, but I think the benefit you get and the avoidance of unnecessary costs, delays, assets that are probably go undocumented and they are completely lost to reach the next generation. I mean, you've read cases of where a complete asset was never captured, was never known to the family, and it's lost. So if you compare the costs that you would have to pay to get everything in place and to plan well versus the opportunity cost or the loss that you would incur if you didn't do it, then obviously it's worth to pay. And as I mentioned earlier, even to save your own life, saving your own life, yeah.
So it's important.
But the question that then comes to mind is this, somebody has an account and there are all these services. Are we saying that the relationship manager then has the mandate to explain all these things to you? Why I bring this up is because there is a division within government that deals with unclaimed assets. Those ones means the asset exists and somebody passed away and nobody knows what to do with it, and somehow there seems to be this rule that you can't go around telling the family, by the way, maybe you didn't know, but he actually has this and he has this accountant.
Yeah.
Is that what the relationship manager is supposed to do?
So what structuring does, it avoids that lapse. So that lapse would happen where I have left my assets at Stanchart. They don't have any other information from me. And of course, data protection applies. They cannot disclose your private banking data to third parties without your authority. So they're not disclosing
And
your portfolio.
family is third party.
Yes. They're not disclosing your portfolio or anything. The bank acts on mandates. Maybe I can say that on behalf of the bank. I think it acts on mandates. So if you've told them disclose, they will disclose. If you've not told them, they will not disclose. So that what happens now, what you're describing is the actual lapse that structuring cures. It's that if you leave these financial assets with the bank and there's no clear guidelines of how they're supposed to be transmitted, the bank after a statutory period will have to forward them to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, who will then look for your beneficiaries under the law. Now, as the law of succession provides, will look for who your beneficiaries are and will tell them about the existence of these assets. But that's easy for financial assets. Say for titles, as Paul is saying, who's looking for them? Who knows that whoever has passed on, who used to own this land that was, and those land people buy for speculation purposes, somewhere in the middle of a town they've never lived in, a place they don't visit often. Nobody knows about that. The title is not at home, so your beneficiaries have not come across it. No, who's actually looking for that? So if no one is looking for it, it's just lost, as in it just ceases to have any benefit to you and your family. But now, as we're saying, that one of the things your relationship manager will do, as you're talking to them, as you're telling them your goals, today, tomorrow, forever. So you'll say, forever, I intend for this wealth to transmit to my second daughter, to my second generation. When it transmits to my second generation, I would want it covering education. I would want it covering medical. I'd want it covering living expenses. I have a lot of my clients who say when the children get married, I'd want them to have a home, their first home to be bought by that. So then we ask, if you are not there, the relationship manager asks that. And what I'll give to Stanchart and their relationship managers is that they're very well trained. Even I also participate in some of their training, so that when they're talking to you, they're able to see the lapse. And then they'll ask you that question and they'll ask you, so what would happen? Who would make this decision of that transmission? What is the vehicle of that transmission? That's when we identify there's no will, there's no trust, there's no hold code. There's actually, if you are mentally incapacitated, there's no one to make that decision. Then now we have the discussion and put in the structures. So the structures would cure that lapse. Yeah. And there are many tools, there are many succession tools. We've just, I think, touched on. So wills is one of them. Will is just that. It's a document where once I die, my assets will transmit to whoever I've stated as my executor, and then the executor will distribute according to the will. Will leads to what we call absolute distribution. And now we're discussing the forever absolute distribution. So if the goal you've fed to the goal you've told to the relationship manager is, I want my assets to be distributed absolutely to my 3 adult children, then the will step in to do that. Another succession tool we had already discussed, though it's a limited one, is a power of attorney. That one deals with incapacity, and it's a power of attorney will abate upon death, meaning once I pass on, it has ceased to have power. So now something else needs to step in. If I have assets in my personal name, either the will needs to step in. If I had moved my assets into a corporate body like a trust or a holding company, then those entities will be the ones dealing. The board of trustees or the board of directors and the holding company will be dealing with those assets. The third succession tool is you could decide that I want. And we're having this discussion sometime, that sometimes someone sits with the portfolio, and I also had it, I think, in the earlier conversations, and they realize my land in Nyanyuki that is just for speculation purposes is not adding me value. I want to convert it into, say, bonds or whatever. And in that case, if I've done that, I want to actually say that, this particular bonds are for my youngest daughter. This is my inheritance to my youngest daughter. So this ones I'm holding in an account that is between me and my youngest daughter. So even though I've passed on, automatically, I've moved, my youngest daughter has gotten them. So you see, I've still done succession in a very simplified way. And then so that's basically what we call a gift in law. Like when I'm alive, I've already given you the gift. That's why I've put it in our joint names. And then when I pass on, automatically my part has lapsed. Okay. Yes.
You mentioned tax planning.
Yes.
At this point, does this not come in? Because I would like to understand if I am gifting my children,
yes,
I'm gifting my relatives, I'm gifting my spouse.
Yes.
Are there tax laws that apply to whatever it is that I'm gifting?
Yes. 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 Tax laws
even
apply.
In death, tax just follows you.
So if you're gifting in death, that's different. That's succession. At present, all our transmission through succession is tax exempt. Meaning if my father has passed on, my father passed on in 2021, if my father has passed on and he has by his will or through intestacy has transmitted a property to me, when I'm getting it, I will not pay capital gains tax, and there will be no payment of taxes. There will be no capital gains tax due or stamp duty. I'll get it, yeah? But now, if my father is alive and he wants to pass on the same property to me, because my father and I are related, we are exempted under what we call Schedule 8 of the Income Tax Act and Schedule 8 of the Income Tax Act. So we are exempted from paying capital gains tax. So capital gains tax is the taxes. I'm selling property to Paul today. Whatever gain I'm getting from it is taxable at the rate of 15%. And those are the things we're telling you. Those are the things your investment managers are saying. Your portfolio is losing value without you knowing, because as that land is appreciating somewhere, the tax, 15% of that gain is taxable, and you do decide to deal with it. And those are the conversations that your investment manager and you are going to be having, your relationship manager and you are going to be having. So anyway, if I'm selling to a third party like Paul, whom we're not related, if I'm selling to anyone, it's 15% capital gains tax. But specifically between a father and a parent to daughter or spouse, there's an exemption for capital gains tax. So for that one, I'll be exempted. But on the stamp duty, if it's a house in Kilimani, I will pay 4%. Me, the recipient, I will pay 4% of stamp duty of the purchase price. So that's also now a tax due. So if we want to tax plan around it, and our clients, I think the most easiest example I can give is someone who stands at the wedding and says, I'm giving my son a 4-bedroom house in wherever, and then comes to the office, let's transfer the 4-bedroom house. And when we're transferring, the first question we have to tell him, so if we're transferring to your son directly, as long as you have a birth certificate that proves he's your son, we'll get the exemption for CGT, but we won't get the stamp duty exemption. But now if you want both exemptions, we can use what is known as a family-owned company. We create a company where you and your son are both shareholders. We put it into the company, and now that's what we call a holding company. We put it into the company, exempt of CGT and capital gains. Then once it's sitting in the company, we exit you as a shareholder. Another father will say, I want it to be held by both my son and his new bride. Now we tell him, because you and your bride are not related and you want them to to hold it in their joint names again,
Capital
both
gains tax.
CGT will apply and stamp duty will apply. So if we use the company in this case, first we put you in, and so if we use the family-owned company in this case, after we remove you, we'll bring in the daughter. We'll do something called increase in share capital. We'll bring in the daughter. So we've tax planned around it. But finally, the option we have, but now that one presents a new option. If they get divorced, these are shares you give to this daughter. So this is matrimonial property now. So have you thought about and that's now another risk on that portfolio. So finally, we come to the final option. Let's put it in a family trust.
I want you to belabor this point a little bit.
Yeah.
If they get divorced.
Yes, I want you to belabor this point.
So let me do that.
Yes, please. Go to town on it.
So let's assume now we've seen from a tax perspective. So there are legal tax and accounting considerations when we're looking at portfolios. So from a tax perspective, we've determined it's tax efficient to go the holdco route because we're going to be able to exempt the capital gains tax and the stamp duty. That's fine. But now, from an legal perspective, in terms of matrimonial property rights, if these two get divorced, God forbid, do you understand that now this person was gifted these shares and a gift given in marriage cannot be taken away because we've divorced? We've had very publicized cases on this matter. I'm sure you've seen them on the media. Yes? So now, because I own my shares, so now we have to ask yourselves, what would you want if the divorce happened? I would want a situation where these people continue to live in that house, or that house exists for the grandchildren. So then we bring in the final option. We say, let's put in a family trust. We'll get the exemption for CGT. We'll get the exemption for stamp duty. On top of that, the home is now owned by a trust. The trust is a body corporate, meaning it's a separate legal personality from the person. So Diana Trust and Diana Mureithi are different
trust
people.
Is actually a person.
Yes, it's a legal person.
In law.
Yes, in law. Yes. So that means we're different people. So first, it has mitigated future, God forbid, matrimonial property disputes because neither of us is married to the trust, so none of us is suing the trust for matrimonial property. And Section 6 of the Matrimonial Property Act specifically states that trust property is not matrimonial property. So that's number one. But number two, let's assume me, one of the spouses in this marriage, likes to pawn off my things to the bank and other lenders, and I have many issues with my credibility or bankruptcy issues. Yes. My bankruptcy issues, the Trustee Perpetual Succession Act specifically points out that the set laws, a beneficiary or as a set law in the trust or as a trustee in the trust, my personal bankruptcy issues don't affect trust assets. So it's also created an asset protection mechanism, which is why Paul, despite me and whoever fighting up to the Supreme Court, Paul is able to continue growing that portfolio very, very okay without anyone. Yeah. And then now in future, God forbid someone has passed on. Even though someone else, you all know the other highly publicized case where someone passes on, husband passes on, the property moves to the wife marries younger man. So he also acquires a benefit in the property. You remember that? So now if someone had passed on and the other person has remarried, this other person doesn't automatically acquire rights in this property we had acquired for our children. Our children will grow up and will be able to appropriate those benefits. So it's guarded against a third risk, which is succession. All the while, the investment manager who had an investment, because at the very start, you discussed what your goals are. And when you discussed your goals, you said, I intend for this wealth to fund the college fund or to do something. The investment manager has been growing the wealth systematically and is able to fund those goals. That's how Forever plays in. Yes.
Right.
You know, when you explain it, you can just clearly see, this makes a lot of sense. This makes sense. Yes, this makes sense. This makes sense. And these are things that people think about. But, you get stuck at the point of, okay, so I don't know.
Where do I go?
I don't know. Where do I go with this information? And I think it's very important that we're having these conversations now, because then it opens up the minds of the people. So wealth.kenya@sc.co.ke. This is where you need to start sending those emails and start booking appointments with your relationship manager. So in the event that somebody had already maybe made certain decisions, okay, but then when you're reviewing, you're seeing that you made a good decision up to this point, but at this point, this decision is introducing new risk. Also because the society is changing, things are happening, the tax laws are changing and all, and so on and so forth. How easy is it to amend, to adjust this when someone is talking to a relationship manager?
Okay.
Is it something that's straightforward? Okay, let's amend this. Or do you have to say, okay, now you've got to go and bring everybody to a room and all of you agree?
So let me start with what we can amend from a banking perspective, and then what goes to the lawyer. So if you want to change your mandate on your bank account, you can change it at any time. You just come and say, these are my new mandate. Okay. If you want to introduce or to open or close a joint account, again, you can do it at any time. Okay, as long as the parties in the joint account have agreed that let's now change this, introduce a third person or a fourth, you can always do that. And again, you can always put assets, investment assets, bonds, mutual funds, fixed deposits into a joint account, and you can also sell them. So there is flexibility in that space. Now let's go to the side which now the lawyer in terms of the trust and the holdco and the other structures.
Yeah. So let's remember what we said about the bank is banking whichever structure we give them.
Yeah.
So if we give them a family trust, they have mandate for how our trust runs. We have told them there are two trustees who makes which decisions in this trust. So the key thing you want to remember as a settlor or as a testator, the person who's creating whatever the structure, is control. Be very clear on what control you want to have, because amendment is a control issue. If I say that I will be having control, I have it's me and my spouse, we are the trustees, and therefore that means I have a casting vote. I will be the one who just needs to sign on a resolution that goes to the bank and says, change the mandate on this, change whatever on that. So it's a control issue which the trust deed will have spoken to. If we have a holding company, it's a question of how you've drawn the articles or whichever other documents you're having in this company for purposes of running the company. Mostly in this case is articles. If you're two, there may be a shareholders agreement. So you said that I have control, and therefore once I sign the resolution as the board of directors, I send it to the bank. The bank will do that. So for larger families where maybe there are more people, then that can be more whatever. And in that case, we recommend maybe the services of a corporate trustee or some other formal person who'd be able to take care of those day-to-days. But generally, the rule is maintain control when you're alive. When you're alive, don't need to look for third parties to take care of your own wealth, because ultimately it's yours. Yeah.
Yep.
I want to ask the question, because when you think about all these things, succession and all, you're thinking old age, you then are dying peacefully in your sleep, and your children and your grandchildren are now the ones who are left to benefit from this. But then people are dying young as well.
Yeah.
So at that point, let's say you are dying and you're leaving a young family. You have a family, they're young, and the breadwinner or the one who's holding this wealth exits the stage, and they hadn't done this kind of planning. What are you seeing? Right? What are you seeing? What are you dealing with? What cases are you dealing with that are saying we need more and more people to be aware before they get to this level?
Yeah. So firstly, and to quote some statistics, as at the end of the last year, 2023, December, the Unclaimed Asset Authority published that 62 billion shillings have been reported to them. 62 billion. That is money. And this is a financial asset. This doesn't include property and all that.
This is just cash.
Cash and investments that are in financial space. They have not been claimed. So already you can see there are a lot of families that are going to suffer, children that are going to suffer when there are money that their parents had already made, but it's just gone and it's there. Okay. And of course, if they don't know, then they don't even have a point to start to claim that money. Now, in the banking space, we see this all the time, because when somebody passes on or somebody is incapacitated, sick in hospital, and they need resources, the first thing they do, and they probably, they know this person used to bank with you. So the first thing is they come and say, oh, this has happened.
Yeah.
So where do we start?
Yeah.
If no structure has been put in place, is go to court.
It's that simple.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
All we do is we block the account.
You used to come with him to the bank. Yes, we know. But,
all we'll do is we'll block, giving us a death notification or whatever, we'll block the account so that there's no entry into that account. And we really encourage people to do that, because sometimes they don't, and of course fraudsters may find a path to it. But that's a subject for another day. So we block the account, and that as much as we can do. The next thing is we just fold our hands and we wait for the courts to give direction. That can take time.
Yeah.
And especially if there's a sort of a dispute, it can take a very, very, very long time. In the meantime, there are goals that you had of this children education. There are goals you had on a number of other things, care for the children, the health and all that. And these kids are growing. Guess what happens? They miss out. So by the time things are settled, the kids have grown up and they've gone to a completely different direction. That even this money you'll be now trying to you get it finally. It can't help them because they missed the years of school, or they went to really poor schools, right? So they never got the real education that you wanted. So that is the real challenge that we are facing, and it's a present challenge that we are facing in our times.
But is the challenge not also around the relationship we have with money and wealth? We are socialized, all of us, in different and diverse ways as to how it is we understand, and in our understanding relates to money. Because that we have a portfolio of 62 billion in unclaimed assets speaks of that relationship that we have with money and how it is the money we have influence our relationships with the people who are dear and loved by us. And because if the understanding was anyway close to what we're discussing here, that portfolio would not even have $1 billion.
I know. That's true. I mean, the fintech Fin Access survey that's published earlier this year said that only about 18.1%.
18.
Or 18. Yeah, 1/8. So roughly 2 in 10 people are financially
literate.
Savvy. Let me say savvy. Literacy is something else. I mean, you can use the financial products. I think that's about 42%. You can do M-Pesa, you can do bank transfer, you can do that. But actual real understanding.
Believe
Healthy.
me, literacy is not as high as you think.
Which
Okay, even 2 out of 10 is actually very, very low for a country of our status, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so because even what you're saying is goes to the first and most basic aspect of literacy, in that money mindsets. It's the first thing. Yes, that if I don't realize that I need to plan for this money, that's how I end up with my money in Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. And if you're talking about 2 out of 10, we are 5 in this room. It means 2 of us, like we represent a section of the population. So there is, it's when you think that we are people who are, fairly exposed. Everyone living in Nairobi is fairly exposed.
That is the problem, because we think we know.
Okay.
And everything
yet we don't
know at all. In fact, this
discussion has just shown. And
We
even the
actually
very many
don't.
people who are commenting here, like, and many of them thinking, okay, this is a conversation for rich people.
No, it is not.
You need
People
to have
don't get
certain
rich in a
level of
day.
affluence.
That's the whole point.
Yes, exactly.
It's over time, yes.
But thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure having this wealth conversation. They're eye-opening. Paul Njoki, CFA, Head of Affluent Banking and Wealth Management Product from Standard Chartered Bank, and Diana Mureithi, who is Head of Legal Services and Private Wealth at Anderson, a Global Legal and Tax Advisory. They've been our guests. Keep it here for more conversations. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.